All through the Jamboree, we've been thanking all of our amazing sponsors, folks like Boundary Bay and Bellingham, for helping us make the Jamboree. But, the biggest sponsors of the Jamboree are, of course, all of you, our amazing Jamboree community. And as bummed out as we are that we can't all be together this year, we will all be together again at some point. And all of those tickets that you folks have been buying and all that merch that you folks have been buying have really helped us keep that Jamboree dream alive. There will be another Subdued Stringband Jamboree, but everything that you folks donate and support through buying tickets or getting merch just really helps us keep this thing going. Keeping this thing going might just be the theme of this 20th annual Subdued Stringband Jamboree. What's really blown me away about what this community has done during the pandemic is the fact that we've actually done this event. We've all gotten together and thrown a festival together, and it just blows me away. So many other bigger, more moneyed festivals than us have, just played last year's videos or whatever, and instead we had the mad idea to throw an entire whole festival. And these mad little ideas are the things that the Jamboree community is all about. When quarantine started a few months back, one of our Jamboree performers realized that his day job tending bar wasn't going to happen, and so he did something very Jamboree. He walked outside, stood on the street, and played trumpet for half an hour. And he ended up continuing that for a marathon 68 days in what became known as the Sunset Trumpet Series. And we're going to present one of those now. So please give a very warm Jamboree welcome to our very own Pace Rubedeau. Pace Rubedeau, everybody. That is our very own Pace. Mike. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Pace. Thank you. Oh my goodness. We see, even in the middle of a pandemic, beautiful things can happen. That's the kind of thing that would be really hard to pull off at a normal Subdued Stringband Jamboree, but in this, we can just bring the whole audience off to an isolated part of an isolated venue in an isolated part of Whatcom County, and we can make some magic happen. Just like that. Just taking a second. My goodness, I can hear the band warming up next door, and things are about to get so hot. It's been a day. My goodness, it's been a day. All the acts we've had play. I'm having a hard time keeping them all straight. It all starts to sort of blend together, but wow. Let's see, I might be able to do it in reverse order. We've had, well, let's see, we started with Devin Champlin, and then it was Robert Sayers and Blake and the house band, and then we had Sophie May, and we had Baby Gramps, and we had Devin Champlin again, and Bruce came by, and we had Megan Yates and the Kindred, and I absolutely know I'm forgetting someone, but we've had just some amazing acts today, and you can find them all in the Meet the Bands part of the Boundary. Thank you, Boundary. You can find them all on the Meet the Acts part of the Subdued Stringband Jamboree website, so check that out. Boundary. So I spoke to Boundary Bay, and it turns out that this is, in fact, I don't know if we can zoom in on this this little figure in a onesie here. Meet me on camera 2. Right there. That's actually based on me. Apparently, Boundary Bay beer cans can tell the future, and I'm going to be bald soon. I hope by choice. Okay, back to camera 1. Folks, we're taking a little bit longer on this changeover because the band that's getting set up on stage right now is huge. It's big. It's epic. We're gonna blow your socks off, and then we got one last little treat after that. Oh man, Sophie May, you saw her in the earlier in the program. She played a couple songs right here on the Subdued MC stage, and she's gonna be back in here in just a little bit. But for now, I'm going to send you over to the main stage where things are about to get wild. How wild? I'm about to see. All the camera crew has abandoned me here in the studio. I'm speaking into one camera now because everybody wants to see what's going to happen next as things go crazy with Sweetheart of the Rodeo.